Hey everybody, Professor Snart here, just checking in, see how things are going. It's Monday, June 7th right now. So I'm just in our course here and I'll check our due dates. We have a couple of units coming up, or a couple of units we've just finished, I should say. Units 3 and 4 were due last Tuesday, June the 1st. And so you'll notice that we've actually had a fair amount of time to work on Unit 5, Summary, Paraphrase, and Description. So that's due tomorrow, Tuesday, June 8th. So partly it just gives us a little break to catch our breath, to be perfectly honest. Also, since Unit, I guess it was 3, had our first writing assignment, even though it was just a paragraph, the longer break does give you time to sort of look at that, and if you made some pretty serious errors, just to kind of figure out what those were, and for Unit 5, make sure you're not making those same mistakes again. Often, the key to success in terms of just writing stuff like that is kind of learning from those mistakes. Honestly, if you lose a couple points here and there on the smaller assignments, it really doesn't affect the grade overall, since there's so much that we're doing in the course. And the big key is then on the major essays, which are worth, a substantial number of points, is to make sure you're not making those same mistakes over again. So in many ways, you can make, quite a few mistakes on some of the early writing assignments. Obviously, you might get sort of a bad grade or lose some points for that. But what you learn in terms of not making that mistake again when it really counts is well worth it. So even though we're almost, like to the midterm of our course for the 5-week course, most of the grade in terms of the point value is still in work to be done. So we have most of the work coming up for us. But it is important then to be learning kind of the basics that we're working through in these early units, the first half of the course. So I'm just looking at Unit 5, Summary, Paraphrase, Description, pretty straightforward. You're reading a short story called Boys and Girls by Alice Munro. A little quiz, kind of drawing your attention to some of the finer details in that story. And then also a couple of video walkthroughs for works cited formatting, and also using the databases, which you're going to be doing for later units. So we have, for this unit, just a summary of the story. And again, I'm just reading right from our course here. So it's fairly short, 2 pages, and it's just summary. It's not your opinion or an analysis of like themes or symbolism and that kind of thing. So it's really the simplest kind of writing that you can be doing. And it's good practice to be able to separate out what's your interpretation or judgment from just kind of retelling details in the story, particularly because as we get into the essay writing in the coming units, you want to be really careful not to just fall into summary and giving, rehashing details from the story, but actually organizing those details to support a kind of interpretation, your idea of a theme or a relationship between characters or something like that. As I've mentioned before, particularly if sort of writing about literature is new to you, or you just haven't done it for a while maybe, it really is useful to look at the sample essays in our textbook. Not for formatting and that kind of thing necessarily, but for sort of tone and style and approach and that kind of thing. So there's lots of traps to fall into if you're not sort of familiar with the style, in terms of, you don't want to fall into that I voice or become too conversational or informal. And you can see how the sample essays in our book, even though they cover, completely different topics, they sort of approach the literary works in similar ways, and also the tone and the kind of the component pieces of those essays are very similar. There's an idea, a basic, broad thesis idea. There's topic sentences that begin each of the paragraphs that sort of fit within that broad idea. And then, of course, the ultimate support for those topic sentences, and then, of course, for the larger thesis, is specific detail, direct quotation from the short story. So doing the summary writing exercise kind of starts you in terms of paying attention to those details and being able just to retell them without even having to worry about having a thesis statement and arguing some idea. The other part of Unit 5 then asks you to post to the discussion board, and this is much more a response. So your opinion about the story, much more informal. It should really include details still, but you'll see the difference then in terms of the response, your response to the story, which is much more personal, right? Which is the discussion board, and then the summary. So we're almost splitting these two things up artificially so you can really see the difference. And in fact, when I grade the two, that's largely what I look for. Does the student show that he or she really understands the difference between the straight summary, just kind of objective reporting of what happens in the story, versus more of the response, kind of personal reaction, if you want to call it that. Okay, and then looking ahead for our further due dates, we have obviously Unit 5 coming up tomorrow, June 8th. Locating secondary sources, so beginning that sort of research component, will be coming around the bend Thursday, June 10th. And then our first essay assignment, Essay 1, is due Tuesday, June 15th. So, as I always say, be sure you're staying on top of things because we do move so quickly in the course. And obviously, if you're having questions about previous assignments or certainly about assignments coming up, particularly that first essay, be sure to be in touch with me.